Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down the biggest stories hiding behind the numbers. On the surface, the market might seem kind of quiet right now, but trust me, a massive structural shift is happening under the hood. Regulators are basically opening the floodgates for institutional yield.
Okay, so let's just dive right in. On the left, you've got the prices. Bitcoin's just kind of chilling around 65,000 bucks. Ethereum's holding strong near 3,600. Steady, right? But the real story, the one that is absolutely seismic for the future of this whole space, is what you see on the right. A fundamental change just got a huge green light.
And that brings us to the first major catalyst we've got to talk about. This is a regulatory game changer that could unlock a completely unprecedented flood of new capital into crypto. We're talking trillions, potentially.
So here's the absolute heart of it. The US Treasury and the IRS have officially cleared the way for crypto funds and ETFs to earn yield through staking. And this is the key part. They can do it without setting off a bunch of tax headaches. This has been one of the single biggest roadblocks for institutional products for a long time.
Now, the concept itself, it's incredibly simple. A staking ETF is just a fund you can buy in a normal brokerage account like Charles Schwab or Fidelity that generates a return, think of it like interest, from the crypto it holds. But man, while that idea is simple, the implications are absolutely profound.
And this slide just lays out the chain reaction perfectly. First, you get that regulatory approval we just talked about. That lets these ETFs start offering a yield. And that yield, well, that makes these products incredibly attractive to the big money institutional investors who are always hunting for returns. This is the exact mechanism that could finally get them to jump off the sidelines.
And look, this isn't happening in a vacuum. It's not just the staking guidance. There's also new draft legislation that's trying to finally clear up the roles of the SEC and the CFTC. By getting rid of all that legal gray area, the regulatory dam is really truly starting to break.
So where does this all go from here? Well, while that huge regulatory picture is shifting, we're also seeing individual projects starting to make their own moves, all based on their own fundamental strengths. They're driving performance no matter what the macro news says. I mean, a perfect example is Uniswap's token, UNI. It just exploded, surging over 21% in a single day while the rest of the market was pretty much flat. So what on earth was the catalyst for that? Yeah, this wasn't just some random market hype. It was driven by a really concrete proposal they're calling unification. Basically, it's designed to turn on the protocol's fees to directly reward the people holding Uni tokens. And at the same time, it starts a process to permanently burn tokens, which reduces the total supply. It's simple, right? Better tokenomics very often leads to better performance. And this trend of real fundamental development, it's happening all over the place. We're seeing absolute giants like JP Morgan and DBS working together on frameworks for tokenized deposits. They see stablecoins as the future backbone of global finance, and they are literally building the plumbing for it as we speak.
Okay, so with these huge institutional and fundamental forces all swirling around, how do we actually read the current market climate? Where are we right now?
Well, if you look at the market sentiment barometer, the fear and greed index, it's sitting at 26, which is deep in the fear zone. Now that sounds bad, but historically, moments of extreme fear have been a sign that investors are a little too worried, and they often present a pretty good buying opportunity for people who are actually paying attention.
But here's the other side of the coin. Bitcoin's dominance is still really high, close to 60% of the entire crypto market. What that tells us is that a true, full-blown altcoin season, where the smaller coins consistently crush Bitcoin's performance, it hasn't really kicked off yet. The capital is still pretty concentrated in the big guy.
So all of this really points toward a balanced strategy. The data seems to suggest holding on to your core positions in the big ones like Bitcoin and Ethereum while you actively hunt for those catalyst-driven altcoins. We're talking about projects with strong fundamental updates, tokenomics upgrades, new partnerships, kind of like what we just saw with Uni.
So looking ahead, there are two key things you really need to keep on your radar. First, on November 12th, the House decision on the government shutdown could bring a risk-on feeling back to all markets. And second, keep a close eye on any progress with the Genius Act. This is a super important piece of legislation for creating clear rules for stablecoins, which would be another huge step in cementing the rules for the whole industry.
And all of this leaves us with one final, pretty provocative thought. You've got this bearish, fearful sentiment clashing with these incredibly bullish structural changes. So with the gates for institutional money now officially unlocked, Is this moment of market fear just the last quiet moment before the big rush begins? That, my friends, is the billion-dollar question.